from San Pablo City, News Center, Laguna. This is Eyes on the News.
Welcome to the Eyes on the News, bringing you the current issues for Sunday, 31st of October 2021. Let's start our news regarding the number of cases of abuse of OFWs recorded by the Philippine Overseas Labor Offices in 2020. Christian Biglete is here to report the news.
85,000 cases of abuse of OFWs recorded in 2020, according to data presented to the Senate Labor Committee here on October 8, 2021, about 5,000 incidents of maltreatment of overseas Filipino workers were documented in 2020. Senator Joel Villanueva, the committee's chairman, provided data from the Philippine Overseas Labor Offices or POLOS, which showed that in the Middle East alone, 4,302 cases of abuse were reported last year. There were 503 incidents of mistreatment identified in Asia, whereas 86 incidents were reported in Europe and the Americas. The number of contract violations committed towards OFWs, which totaled 23,714, was also included in the POLO data, the majority of which were recorded in Middle Eastern countries. Villanueva cited exacerbating elements, which he said contribute to the abuse of Filipino migrant workers. He also lamented the exclusion of domestic employees from labor code or labor protection laws in 6 of the Middle East 8 countries. Undersecretary Sara Lou Arreola of the Agency of Foreign Affairs or DFA told the committee debating bills to create a new department for abroad Filipinos that countries in the Middle East are working to improve the labor laws. Still, Arreola said it is still difficult to control the abuses against OFWs. Christian Biglete, Eyes on the News.
Due to the continuous abuse and violence experienced by overseas Filipino workers, Roxine says the world is very far off from ending racism's scourge. Ana Altea Ilagan is here to report the news.
Amid abuse of OFWs, Roxine says the world is very far off from ending racism's scourge. Chidoro Locsin Jr., the Philippine Foreign Secretary, said the world is still far from stopping the scourge of racism, citing the continuous abuse of Filipino migrant workers and Asians overseas. During the United Nations High-Level Conference honoring the 20th anniversary of the Durban Declaration and Program of Action on Thursday, September 23, Manila time, the Philippines top diplomat raised the issue in a pre-recorded statement. The DDPA is an action-oriented document that describes concrete measures that nations can combat racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance. It was adopted by consensus in the South African city of Durban in 2001, but according to Locsin, despite the fact that DDPA has signed 20 years ago, prejudice against Filipinos and other Asians persists, with the coronavirus outbreak aggravating the problem. He further claimed that migrants in other countries are denied rapid access to life-saving COVID-19 vaccines.
Filipino migrants and immigrants have themselves been victims, subjected to rising physical and verbal abuse simply because of their ethnicity. In many countries too, migrants have suffered from disparities in access to economic and health services, including vaccines, perhaps in the hope that the virus will do the work for them. We are still very far off from eliminating the scourge of racism and related intolerance.
Leading to a shortage of prospects in the Philippines, millions of Filipinos have chosen to work in other countries in order to provide for their families. However, horror stories of overseas Filipino workers suffering from physical and verbal abuse from their foreign employers continue. In May, the Philippine Senate launched an investigation into cases of OFWs being trafficked to war-torn Syria, with the crime reportedly carried out with the cooperation of corrupt Philippine immigration authorities. In Western countries such as the United States, the COVID-19 pandemic has increased anti-Asian violence. In March, a 65-year-old Filipino-American woman was severely injured in an attack in New York City, which is home to the United Nations headquarters. For the current issues happening in OFWs, here are some interviews with OFWs in New York, USA. As an OFW here in the United States of America, have you experienced any physical or verbal abuse?
And some threats when I was going on public transportations. They told me that I should not be outside because I am a carrier of COVID-19.
What can you say or what is your reaction to this violence that you OFWs are experiencing?
If we could just go home because of what is happening now, we have done it. But we cannot just leave our jobs because this is all we have to support our family.
Filipinos in New York indicated they felt frightened because of the regular threats of verbal and physical violence they experience. Despite the abuse and violence they experience, OFWs there are still working for them to support their family. The only thing that all of us can do now is to be there with them to protect them from violence. Hannah Altea Ilagan, Eyes on the News.
In times of need, they sometimes have to go abroad and away from their loved ones to support and provide for their family's needs.
OFWs are true heroes. Despite the abuses and discrimination they experience, they continue to fight for their families, so as their countrymen. Let us support and fight for them too, as they do for all of us.
That's all the news today we prepared to be seen.
Let us all remember, keep our eyes on the news.